Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 281. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where you can buy my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, June 8th. It is sweltering here in the Midwest. Over the weekend, we were in the 90s with a heat index up into the hundreds. Although we are supposed to get some relief this week with thunderstorms and slightly cooler temperatures this weekend. So it has been a warm week here. There are still ongoing protests and things going on in the world. Although I gather that things are moving towards more peaceful resolutions in some cases, and there have been quite a few changes announced across the United States this week. So the work of anti-racism is very, very, very far from over. I'm not sure it ever will be, but I am pleased to see that some things are moving in a good direction. And while I continue to knit on, it is not without thought, and making more donations and reading more and spending time working and thinking about what I can do. So that is kind of the current update here. The weekend was quiet. We mostly stayed indoors due to the aforementioned heat, but we did run a few errands. I spent a lot of time crafting. We rented the final Star Wars movie, which we did not see in the theater, and I don't believe we'll be going to movie theaters anytime soon, so that was kind of fun. And in general, we're just getting used to the slower pace of life at home, and just doing more crafts and more things that we can around the house. So today, because of the aforementioned heat, have I mentioned that enough? I really dislike being here in summer. I am drinking an iced tea that I made. This is Plum Deluxe Hammock Blend Black Tea. This was when I was in the Plum Deluxe Club, which was over a year ago. But if you are looking for, you want to try some teas, Plum Deluxe has a club where I believe for $10 a month, they'll send you an ounce or two of a monthly tea plus a taste sample of another. At least that's how it was when I was involved. And this was one of those. It's in a summer flavor. It's black tea with orange peels and natural cream flavor. So it's kind of like, I always call them 50-50 bars or dreamsicles, orange sickles, and they taste really great. So that is Plum Deluxe, and it's their hammock blend. I don't know if they ever added that to their standing teas. I haven't been to their site in a little while because my tea cupboard runneth over. So I just brewed up a very small bit hot and then filled it with ice water and ice and added a little bit of sweetener. And I've drunk this one before. I really, really like it. It's a good summer iced tea blend. I was looking for something fruity today and something I could serve iced. Of course, most teas are great iced. I have lots of herbals, and I also have black tea. I was looking for a little bit of caffeine, so I'm gonna sip on that and enjoy that. So let's get into the weekly projects. Last week I finished a sample knit, so I turned my attention to I talked about how that beautiful sweater yarn that I loved had tried to be a sweater twice, and now I was turning it into a shawl. And I am still working on that, but I am pleased to say it is working out really well. I also, it got big enough that I went looking, and I actually have a 60-inch needle, so I believe today you'll even be able to see some of it. So this is the Quaking Aspen shawl by Dee O'Keefe. On Ravelry. She has quite a few patterns for sale, and a lot of her shawl patterns are sort of triangular shawls with interesting textural stitches, and then they are worked in DK or worsted weights. I think this pattern calls for DK weight. I am actually knitting more of an Aran weight, and what I'm knitting is Spirit Trail Fiberworks Zalti, which came in oversized skeins in a beautiful kind of hydrangea blue colorway. Unfortunately, Spirit Trail Fiberworks is no longer dyeing yarn, so you won't be able to get it unless you find it on D-Stash. So the top part of the shawl is basically all garter stitch except for these, sorry, I knocked the camera there. That was the needle hitting the camera, is all garter stitch except for these ridges, which all you have to do is purl on the wrong side, but you do have to, that's probably the trickiest part about it, you just have to remember that they're there. So it is kind of this these lines dividing these sections, and then down at the bottom I am now on my third repeat of the lace, and that is going to give me some leaf lace. That's the sort of Quaking Aspen leaves, and I realize that my color doesn't make much sense, but I love it anyway. This is going to be a rather large shawl. I am mostly knitting it as written. However, I added one extra repeat in the garter section, and I may add an extra repeat in the lace section. We're just going to see how my yarn goes. I'm actually at the very end of this ball of yarn. I have two more large balls and then a whole bunch of small balls. Unfortunately, the yarn is in a whole bunch of little cakes because the first sweater that I knitted in was very pieced, so there were lots of small balls. But I am enjoying this. It is a pleasure to knit. The lace is easily memorizable, and it's easy for me to see where I am in the pattern and if I have the right number of stitches, and it was kind of the perfect comfort knitting, and I hope that I will wear the shawl a ton. I think I will, because I love this yarn. It's just got so many beautiful colors. It's a semi-solid, but it's got some purples and blues. I don't know how much you can really see it on the camera, especially since I didn't turn the lights on because it was kind of bright out today. But it is just a gorgeous blue, and I'm super excited that this is finally going to be an object that I want to wear. So I am still working on that as basically my personal project. I have tried to cut back a little bit. For a long time I was casting on everything, and now I'm trying to finish some things, and also I was having problems concentrating on things, and I'm trying to focus on just one project that's nice and easy to knit. I do technically have a second project to cast on, but it is also a simple project. I showed you the yarn for this last week. It was a beautiful skein of yarn from Handmade Knits, and Amanda is a designer, but she also does some yarn dyeing, and her shop is on Etsy under Handmade Knits, and I'm looking to see if the Etsy address is not on here. This is her HMA Luxe Worsted. It's a 70-20-10 merino cashmere silk. It is absolutely luscious. Although it is worsted, I think it's knitting more like a DK. And what I am doing with it is knitting it into a very, very simple hat. The colorway is Sugar Plum. I think I said that before, but if I did not. And it is a really beautiful, kind of sophisticated pink with bits of blue and purple and orange in there. And it's a little bit hard to see, but it is just a really nice, nice pink. And like I said, just a little bit sophisticated. I am knitting the Standing Rock hat pattern, which was created by Lavanya Petrosella. She used it sort of as a fundraiser for the situation at Standing Rock with the pipeline. That was several years ago, and I went ahead and made a donation to the Navajo Nation, which is currently facing coronavirus quite a bit, and so I went ahead and made a donation to their medical fund, since the donation that she suggested making is no longer, the link no longer works. So because it was for raising funds for Standing Rock, and that situation unfortunately has resolved. So I went ahead and made a donation, and I am knitting her hat for Roxy, and I have a little bit longer before I do the crown decreases. I just wanted a super simple hat, just to show the beauty of the yarn, and of course I will do a pom-pom on top. But I have plenty of yarn left, so that is what it looks like on its own, and it is really lovely to work with. I think this is going to be a really nice, luxurious hat. And before you tell me, what am I doing knitting merino cashmere nylon for a child? You know, I buy the yarn because I love the colors, and it grows up to be whatever it's going to be. I realize that I am spoiling my niece, but I just think it's a beautiful colorway and a beautiful hat. So that is what I'm working on there. I did not bring up my crochet blanket this week, but that is in anticipation of bringing it next week because I have one more row, well, technically 2 rows. I have one more color stripe and then I get to do the border. So my plan is to crank that out this week and next week have a finished blanket to show you. I am super excited about that, and that means basically by June 15th I will be ready to start the second blanket. I did open that, but I'll show you that at the next. I did open the yarn for that. I actually hadn't even opened it. I ordered the package and I just put it in the closet knowing I'd need it later. I will bring that next week to show you as I start the second blanket. The second one will be for Roxy. So Miles' blanket is almost done. It is beautiful. I love it. I have enough red left over to easily do the border, and I don't know whether I'll add in other colors or not, but for now I'm definitely going to make it a red border. So that brings me to what I'll be casting on this week. In between all these other things that I am working on, I have another sample from Zen Yarn Garden. I know you're probably tired of hearing me talk about their yarns, but I love creating shawl projects in their yarns, and everything that I create in their yarns, you could certainly purchase their yarns, but everything that I've been doing are 2 and 3 color shawls lately, and any of those could be done with any colors in your stash, or if you're looking to shop a little bit, hit up your local yarn store and support them during this time. So really everything that I'm doing is versatile. I just happen to be doing it in Zen Yarn Garden yarns because again, they are paying me to knit samples. So this week I am working with a new color. It is called Lydia Crocheting in the Garden at Marley, and this is the well, let me undo this. I don't know why I didn't take that apart. This is the painting that they are trying to emulate. Again, this is their Art Walk series and paintings from the Met translated into yarn colors. And the colors that they translated are greens and blues and purples. It's reading a little bit more brown in this photo, but it is not. It is some really bright, beautiful greens, little pops of green and yellow, and some really nice peacocky tealy blues, and then purples, and we have paired that with moon purple. So this is what I'll be working on this week. It almost looks, I'm sorry, I should have turned on the lights because it really is kind of washing out what you see in this room. It is a dark kind of royal purple, and so I think these two are going to be great together. And these are going to be the Boyagi shawl, or Bojagi, I think it's Boyagi, by Knit Boop, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. And she is the owner of Webster Street Knittery, and she's got some really great patterns. So I'm excited to start this one. I will now wind these colors tonight and get started on that, and you can expect to see that in the next week or 2. So that is what I'm working on in knitting. Let's talk about spinning and then we will wrap. This one has been a very short episode. I apologize. I only have a few projects in process because I am trying to kind of concentrate on a few. So 2 weeks ago, I showed you a beautiful braid from Fat Cat Knits. I had ordered it off of her Etsy shop. It was Polworth, and it was in blues and greens and purples and reds, and the colorway was Olivia. Now, this has not had its final bath yet, so it still needs that before it will go up into the shop. I spun it as a 2-ply fractal, so half the braid I spun straight through in long color repeats, and then half the braid I spun through in shorter, I broke into strips and spun through in shorter color repeats, and it created this beautiful kind of gemstone colored yarn. There certainly are areas where the colors lined up, which does happen in fractal, so you do have some beautiful red there, but you also have lots of areas where the colors mixed, so you have purples with blues and reds and greens, and all the colors kind of mix. This will make a somewhat striping skein. I think it would be really pretty for a shawl. I suspect I'll have between 350 and 400 yards. It just depends how much it plumps up once it has a bath, and my guess is it will be a probably sport weight. So it was a beautiful spin, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited to put it in the shop because it's really, really pretty. It just has all these pretty bits. I will be taking some photos and putting them up on Instagram and in the shop. So if gemstone colors are really your thing, this would be a great skein for that. Speaking of great colors, I am halfway through spinning my next braid, which is Hello Yarn, and it is, let's see, it is from a 2016 club colorway. It is merino and it is called Sinister Things, and it has blues and purples and pinks and browns, and that is spinning up beautifully. I think my favorite way at this point to spin is fractal spinning. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do that. I could, this is half the braid. I certainly could tear it into strips, but I haven't decided yet. The first half I spun in short strips. So I used to spin stripping my fiber down to short strips, which creates lots of color change and sort of maximum barber pole. The deal with fractal spinning is that it sort of creates subtle stripes and sections where you have longer runs of color alongside your shorter runs of color. And I sort of like that because sometimes I felt like my barber pole skeins got so mixed up that there wasn't, like it didn't actually read a color, it sort of read all the colors, and sometimes that can get kind of muddy looking. Not so much with Hello Yarn braids, but with some braids where there isn't quite the variation of color or white space or whatnot. So that's what I'm working on this week. I plan to finish that up. I also have to spin just a smidge more yarn for chicken feathers, so that will be the other thing that I do this week, and I am hoping to finish some chicken feathers this week. So I have lots, and my hope is that I'll be done with chicken feathers for a little while. So, or at least the current iteration of the chicken that I'm doing. I've been working on it for about 3 weeks now, and one more week of work, and I hope that I will be done with everything that it needs. So I think that's about it for today. I know it's a short one, but I have lots to get off the internet and start working on because I said that I was going to work on all these different things. So I have lots to do. I hope that you are finding some time to enjoy your crafts. I go back and forth in this time between wanting to be super productive and wanting to just sit and chill and be sort of meditative over my knitting. And I wouldn't necessarily say... So generally, I am very much a product knitter. I want to knit so that I can have the finished object, as opposed to a process knitter of like enjoying the process of knitting. I wouldn't necessarily say that I consider myself a process knitter. However, right now I am finding it sort of soothing to do something simple and to work with my hands. And I'm someone who always has a lot of anxiety, and between the coronavirus epidemic and everything that has happened in the last few weeks, having something to do to occupy my hands, something that's calming, something that I can either let my mind wander and think deep thoughts, or turn on the TV and watch something and distract myself. Either way, knitting is sort of helping. And well, I don't imagine that I wouldn't skip the knitting at this point, because it is such a huge part of my life. I still am thankful that it's there. So I hope you have a lovely week ahead, and until I see you next time, I will say, as I always do, happy spinning. Let's try again. Happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.